All right.
Yes, there you go.
Okay, perfect. Can you hear me?
I can indeed.
Let me just do this. All right. So,
Okay.
Thanks for taking the time.
No worries.
Perfect. So let's get really, really basic. So when I did the first aid course with you, the first thing you said was don't self-diagnose.
Yes.
So can we just expand a little bit on what is mental health and what is not, so that people don't get confused?
Okay, so first and foremost, when we talk about mental health, there's no health without mental health. Both physical health and mental health are intertwined. If you have deteriorating mental health, that can affect you physically. And if you have deteriorating physical health, that can affect you mentally as well. So they're definitely combined there when it comes to both of them. When it comes to mental health and what is mental health, the World Health Organization state that mental health is for a person to be able to contribute and live a fulfilling life and be able to contribute to the community and to themselves and to the wider community, and also be able to have the resilience to be able to bounce back from everyday things that may occur to a person as they go through their life. And it's giving that person that resilience. Everybody has the ability to move around with their mental health. So, for example, an individual could have good mental health today, and then maybe even in 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks' time, their mental health might start to decline and might start to slip. That doesn't necessarily mean that they've got a diagnosis of mental health. A diagnosis of a mental health condition with regards to it. You don't necessarily have to drop into that level of diagnosis, but your mental health, it moves around. It's like our physical health. So some days we can have some aches and pains, some days we can get headaches, some days we can, our stomach may well be a little bit off. That doesn't necessarily mean that we have to go and see a medical professional to get that sorted out. That's something where we're just having an off few days with regards to our physical health. That can be the same for our mental health as well. Our mental health can drop, and we can have a few days where our mental health is poor, and then what that does is start to pick back up again, and our mental health will return to a good state of play. When you were talking about then about self-diagnosis, and when you came on the course as a mental health first aider, as a mental health first aider, you're not taught how to diagnose any conditions, but you're taught to look for signs and symptoms. It's the same for an individual as well. We live in this wonderful age of Google, and there are other web browsers available, but we do live in this wonderful age where if we start to get any, for example, physical symptoms, we'll go to Google and we'll try and track out what it is. And individuals are starting to do that as well when it comes to our mental health, and trying to figure out what's going on with our mental health. And sometimes we get misinformation or poor information, and we might start to make diagnosis of ourselves without a professional doing it. So, for example, if we thought we had appendicitis, we would still wait for the doctor to make that professional diagnosis that we have got appendicitis. We wouldn't necessarily go, yeah, I've got appendicitis. That's definitely what it is. I need to have my appendix removed. Let's get that operation booked in. We just wouldn't do it when it came to something such as that. And it's the same for mental health as well. Yes, we might be showing signs and symptoms, say, for example, of depression. And we might be in and when we talk about depression, there's 3 core symptoms. And the 3 core symptoms are a low mood, a persistently low mood that you've had for 2 weeks or more. The second one is a loss of enjoyment in activities that you used to once find enjoyable. And the third one is a lack of energy or tiredness. Now, they're the 3 core symptoms, and a professional will be looking to see that you've got at least 2 of those. You can have some secondary symptoms as well, but we're looking to have at least 2 of those for 2 weeks before they would consider diagnosing you with clinical depression. So yes, we can live in this age of trying to do self-diagnosis, but when it comes to our mental health, we can do an awful lot to help our mental health, and we can talk about that more as we go on. But we can do an awful lot to help our mental health. But if an individual's struggling, And for example, if they are meeting some signs and symptoms of depression or anxiety, or if they're starting to have an unhealthy relationship with food, or they're using perhaps even self-harm in a way of coping, then that needs some professional help and professional guidance. And you, as you know, is a mental health first aider. I'm a mental health first aid instructor. What I deliver on the course is to say, look, explore options of that individual, but yeah, encourage the person to go and seek professional help and go maybe have a conversation with their doctor. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And
okay.
and you mentioned something that I want to discuss as well, about a healthy relationship with food. So as I've explained to you, this channel is going to be about group exercise professionals. And when we are teaching a class, we are seeing about maybe 20 to 30 people in a class. And everybody comes over to us and talks about their problems, about their issues. And some people will even go deeper. I mean, I've had people telling me about surgeries they had, or how can I help them with hernias, which is not my scope of practice. So what would be the best advice for the instructor when people come with very personal information, or that could show a sign of mental health, or that we don't want to take the burden off? What would be the best advice for us to give?
Okay, so two things there. You've got one where they'll come from for physical ailments, perhaps, or like you quite rightly say, if they've got a hernia, or if they've had a hernia repair, or if they've had a recent operation, and what are their limitations and what they should be taking care of with regards to it. You've got that down, but I understand that you're not a medical professional, you're a sports professional with added training to complement that sports section of what you guys are doing in the way of training. Honestly, when it comes to it, perhaps a little bit of training for that, but let me help you out with regards to this and these conversations you're having at the moment. First and foremost, feel flattered that these individuals are sharing personal and private information with you. And that's exactly what they're doing. So first and foremost, you keep that to yourself. This is a private conversation. If people are discussing any physical ailments, if they're discussing any mental health ailments, this is a private conversation to have. If this is struck up in a place where there's more than just you two there having that conversation, I would tend to, with that, I'd say, look, shall we go somewhere more private? We can have a chat and take that individual to somewhere more private, nice and relaxed, so you can have a supportive conversation. Now, the thing that you need to take care of most is you need to understand, you guys as instructors, you need to understand where your mental health is at. And you need to look after that. If you're going down this route of trying to support individuals with their mental health, you could have some quite emotional conversations when you're having these conversations, and these can impact you as an individual. So you need to give yourself that protection as well. So first and foremost, you need to be looking after yourself. How can you do that? Well, you can check in with you, and there's a thing called the weekly well-being checkup, and Alrado will be able to get these details out to you if you need them.
I'll put it in the description, so that's perfect.
Yeah. So you'll be able to get these information. So with regards to this weekly well-being checkup, you're checking in on how are you sleeping? How are you feeling at this moment in time? Are you having a good day or having a bad day? When I say about how are you eating well? Are you eating poorly? Can you tell with your diet? Because sometimes when it comes to a decline in our mental health, we'll change our eating habits. Because what we'll do is, rather than focus on having a very nutritional diet, which is what we do as fitness instructors with regards to it, and we sort of practice what we preach a lot of the time when it comes to as instructors. Some of us do that, some of us don't, some of us do.
Well, let's not get into that.
But in the main, but what we're looking at is sometimes that's an indicator. And if you're starting to reach for those comfort foods, where normally you, as I say, you know what you normally like to eat, and you're conscious about what you eat. And then if you start to creep towards the sugary donuts or whatever that may well be, then that could be an indicator that your mental health's a little bit lower than it should be. So you're looking out for you and what you do. What's your normal practice? What's your normal behavior with regards to it? Are you getting enough sleep? And are you getting enough sleep? Is it decent sleep? Are you waking up feeling refreshed? Are you drinking enough liquids throughout the day? I know we go on about these 8 litres of water, is it a day, or how many cups a day, or whatever we're drinking a day. It's 8 of something anyway. I always go off beers. So, but however, we do have Yeah, we do have liquid in everything else. Yeah, it's just what we add to that liquid as well. So when we're talking about getting these 8 pints of water down or whatever it is a day, it's 8 pints of liquid, as long as that what we're adding to the liquid is not causing us any harm, for example, or it's not the best for us. So yeah, let's look at our diet. How are we sleeping? Let's look at our sleep. Excuse me. Next thing you're looking at, with regards to it, what's in a stress container? What's happening in your life at this moment in time? What has happened since COVID broke out is everybody's gone from living mode to survival mode. We had that lockdown. Everyone went, right, you're all working from home. We had all that terrifying few months where, with regards to income and how we're going to support ourselves and the health of our family and our friends and perhaps our colleagues as well. What's that going to look like? How am I going to adjust to the new working regime? Am I going to have to home teach? There's all these things that we weren't considering before that happened when COVID came along. So this weekly wellbeing checkup, it was put in specifically for this, for the COVID outbreak, but this weekly wellbeing checkup is going to allow you to just take stock of where you're at. So this element of it, the stress, and when it comes to it, stress, everybody can recognize it. Everybody can identify with stress. If stress is left unaddressed for too long, it will create mental health problems. It will push your mental health down. There's campaigns out there, hashtag address your stress. There's lots of things out there. In your weekly wellbeing checkup, you can do a thing called the stress container. Now, what I'm talking about here is that each and every one of us has a level of vulnerability when it comes to stress, or we have a level of vulnerability just as an individual going about our everyday life. Some of us have much higher resilience than others. So say, for example, we could have 2 people. One person's got resilience up here, another person's got resilience here. We have a midway line through there of the amount of stress those people are facing. It's the same amount of stress. If we cut that completely in half, then 2 people are facing the same amount of stress. The one above the line has the resilience to cope with it. The one below the line hasn't, yet they're both facing exactly the same kind of stresses. So it's going to affect this person more than it's going to affect this person. So what happens is we've got that, each and every one of us as an individual with that, with the amount of stress that we can cope with at any one time. Now, what is stress? So stress is actually a system, it's an early warning detection system to be able to keep us alive. As a species, when we evolved, and all species have this, they have this early warning detection system built into it, that if the creature, or us as humans, or species comes under threat, what that system will do, and it's one of the oldest parts of our brain, it's the amygdala part of our brain, where this system is set in there, that will kick in. And that will then say, right, the body's under threat. Where's the threat coming from? So our pupils will dilate. Our heart rates will go up. You might feel butterflies in your stomach when you're getting stressed out, or for perhaps if you're going to do something where you're a bit nervous. This is that same system that's being employed. And what happens with this is all the major muscle groups get fresh oxygenated blood. And that, what happens then is the body's going, right, okay, where's the threat? Where's the threat? Now, for example, if this was on the African plain and that was a herd of antelopes, that same system is being employed by an antelope that we have. And what that system's doing for the antelope is going, oh my God, there's a cheetah over there. I need to escape this. I need to either flock, get together so it can't single me out. I need to either fight. Well, I'm not really going to put much of a fight against a cheetah. I could freeze and pretend I'm dead and hopefully just ignore me because it hasn't got that trigger to chase me, or I can run like the clappers. I can flee. And that's built into the antelope. That's built into humans. It's exactly the same system. So when we might get an intrusive thought coming in, or if we get an intrusive thought coming in that's a bit negative and we go, I'm not liking that, I see that as a bit of a threat, our brain goes, that thought's a bit of a threat. So what happens then is that our system, the same one as the antelope, that's the system to keep it alive, gets triggered. So the humans, as humans, we are triggering this survival system for everything. So if we have an argument or if anything that's stressful, we're triggering that system. Antelopes on the plain, once the attack's taken place and they single one of the antelopes out and the rest of the herd peel off, within 10 or 15 minutes, that system dies down and they go about with the normal business. We don't. As modern humans, we are triggering that system constantly. So our bodies are on high alert constantly. So what we need to do is find out what stresses we have. We need to do that evaluation. This is part of that weekly wellbeing checkup. So what I'd advise you do is you get a pen and paper, and this can be overwhelming when you first do it, and just be mindful of this, that it can. I want you to write all the lists of stresses that you've got going on in your life at this moment in time. Once you've written all those down, it could be relationships, it could be family, it could be partners, it could be work, it could be money, it could be house, everything. Get it down on a piece of paper. COVID, it could be COVID that you're worrying about and stressing about. Once you've got that list together, what you're looking to do then is go down that list and go, what have I got control over? And those things that you haven't got control over, put a line through, because you're going to need to accept those. Yeah. Now, what you're left with then is going to be a list of stresses that's causing you stress, some things that are causing you stress. You can have a list of those, and you can put that together now in an action list. So you can say, what are my top 5 important things in that list? And I'm going to tackle them first. What that's doing for you as an individual is, rather than being overwhelmed by all these stresses that are coming in, and you're not necessarily identifying them, because you'll go COVID and the next minute another one will flash in. I've got to homeschool, another one will flash in. I've got to go and pick something. No, it's everything, all those stresses. What happens is with that, you can get overwhelmed with it completely, and you're going, oh my gosh, it's just every section of my life I'm stressed about. So what you're looking to do is, right, let's evaluate it. This helps by doing this and putting it down on paper. Now, again, when you see that list of things that you do have control over, that might feel a bit overwhelming. You might look at it and go, oh my God, now I put it down on paper and I was worrying about a lot, but now I didn't realize it was 45 items that I'm now worrying about.
Yeah.
Put it into a priority. Put it in that list. Don't worry about the smaller things. Yeah. Leave them at the bottom of the list. Yeah. And put the important things at the top. It's about getting back in control, because a lot of the time when it comes to declining mental health, or our mental health is being impacted, there's a loss of control. There's a feeling of a loss of control. And even with the diagnosis, I'm quite happy to tell everyone, I've got a diagnosis of general anxiety disorder. I've got a diagnosis of obsessive compulsive disorder. And I do have bouts of depression, episodes of depression from time to time. These have become less over the last few years because I'm managing my diagnosis. And it's been a slog, but I'm managing it. And what that means is I'm not going to be diagnosis free. But I can at least try and stay in control of the symptoms of regards of my diagnosis. And I put a lot of self-care into me. So that's what comes next. So once you've done this evaluation, where's my mental health? Am I eating okay? Am I drinking enough? Am I getting exercise? And be honest with that, you work in the fitness industry. So I'm sure that you will be doing the necessary amount of exercise that you need every week. However, when we talk about exercise, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to go out and run a marathon either. It's about movement. It's about moving around. As humans, we're not built for sedentary life. So what we need to do, we're built to gather, we're built to pick, we're built to move around and get our bodies moving with regards to it. Now, Orlando and I will all know we've had clients in the past where we've gone there doing sports therapy treatments, and you can tell that they've been sitting at the desk for the last 20 years because of how everything's shifted around and everything's moved around with regards to their muscle definition and shape within the body, of how it's adjusted. So it's just movement is getting people up. And when you were talking about you've got people's in classes and things such as that, it's great that they're coming doing this exercise and doing that. But again, it's about let's get moving. Now, another thing with regards to that, so we've got sleep. We're looking at that. We're looking at diet. We're looking at, are we drinking enough liquids? Are we moving enough? Are we doing that? We're looking at what's in our stress container, what we're facing at this moment in time with regards to it. It seems an awful lot. This can feel overwhelming. This is all you're doing.
It is a lot of stuff.
Yeah, having a supportive conversation. However, over the last 70s, I'm a lot older than you, Eldorado, but in the 70s, what are you laughing at? I can remember when all the Keep Fit people started coming out in the 70s. Jane Fonda, she was doing Keep Fit videos in the 80s. And this is when people really started to have this focus on looking after themselves physically. So that's now been going on for 3 or 4 decades. So our mindset is built into us. We know this. We know that exercise is good for us. Yeah, it's already in there. But we're not doing that with our mental health. And that's where we're at now. So just as much as we invest in our physical health, we need to start doing the same for our mental health. And whilst I've been mentioning all this and it looks a lot to begin with, once you get this going, you're not having to check in every week, because you're becoming more self-aware. You're probably very self-aware of yourself physically, but not so much mentally. But by putting these strategies in place, it then gives you an evaluation of where your mental health is at. And if you are starting to tumble, if you do start to see changes, if you put coping strategies in place, for example, when it comes to stress, you need to find ways to reduce immediate stress. A list and evaluating it is one of them. And then you've also got things such as, okay, what can I do? Well, exercise is good for reducing stress. Taking notice, living in the moment's good for reducing stress, because what we do, we worry about the past, we worry about what's gone on, we're worrying about what's coming up in the future, and then what we do is we suddenly look up and we go, I don't even know where them 5 years went. Yeah. Because what I did was I was just worrying about what I'd done, and I forgot to live in the moment. How many of us now, we live in this digital age where we may be watching a program on television and we're still on our mobile devices as well. And then somebody will say, oh, have you been watching that series? And they'll go, yeah. And you say, oh, do you remember when that happened? You go, I don't remember that happening. It's because we're not focused on the here and now. Yeah. And we have to make effort. We make effort to go to go and do exercise 3 times a week. So simply, it should be a simple thing that we can do, invest in ourselves and our well-being and our mental health 3 times a week.
A good analogy on that is that, you know, it's the same thing where if you're trying to lose weight or become fitter, if you're in your beginning phase, then you kind of feel overwhelmed because people tell you like, oh, you have to take care of your calories, don't eat carbs, don't do this, you have to do walking, you have to do your cardio, strength training, and suddenly you feel overwhelmed. But then if you, as you say, if you take one step at a time, then you see that it's a gradual progress and it's not a one solution all.
Absolutely.
And also to add to what you said about the things we can control and what we can't control, I can share a personal experience during lockdown. And I've actually discussed this with a couple more instructors, and we did face the same thing. Because as I started doing classes online, and other instructors as well, you can see the competition. You can see other instructors teaching classes to 100 people a day. And then you're sitting there and you're like, oh, why do I only have 5 people? Why do I only have 10 people? And you kind of lose focus on what it is, on what you can do, and what actually it's not up to you. It's more to acceptance. So that was a really good point. Great. So lots of information there, mind blown straight away. Great. So now, can I get you a bit more into the fitness issues? So body dysmorphia, eating disorders, those are the main, I don't know if you would consider them mental health, but the main issues that we kind of see. So people getting very extreme with their food, and people either getting very, I wouldn't say obsessive, but quite meticulous with their workouts, and, like, oh, I'm not eating anything, orthorexia, all these kind of things. What is our best approach, not to consult, but how can we guide people into a direction if we become aware of that?
Okay, it's a growing concern in the fitness industry. With regards to eating disorders, what are eating disorders? It's nothing to do with food. And you're going to be going, oh, what? Hey, who? And it's not. It is a mental health. It is a mental health diagnosis. However, the relationship with the food is not the diagnosis. Tends to what happen is an individual will be diagnosed with depression, with anxiety, who's got a lot of distressing feelings and is not unable to cope. And what they've done is turn to food in a way of managing those feelings. And then that becomes a very negative, destructive relationship with the food. We've got the 3 main ones. We've got anorexia nervosa. That's when an individual will limit the amount of calories they intake or starve themselves, and they'll lose an incredible amount of weight. We've got bulimia nervosa. Bulimia nervosa is where an individual will eat, so they'll eat normal sittings of meals, etc., but then they'll use purging techniques. So what they'll do, they'll induce vomiting, or they might take laxatives to make sure that the food goes through them a lot quicker, so the body can't absorb the calories. And then we've got binge eating. Binge eating is where an individual will use the food as a source of comfort to try and manage their distressing feelings. And binge eating, a person can eat easily 4, 5, 6, 7,000 calories at any one sitting, because that's what they're doing. They're trying to manage their distressing feelings. We've then got a 4th one that's coming around now, and it's body dysmorphic disorder. And in gyms, the National Health Service now believe that 1 in 10 males that are regularly visiting a gym are showing classic signs of body dysmorphic disorder. And it's a growing concern. Now, you guys as fitness instructors, this is about education. This is about education at the outset. And if you're taking clients on, what you need to be doing is having that close connectivity. That's what we're doing when we've got clients. We have that connection. We've got a professional connection, and then on some level we get that personal connection as well. They don't like you, they're not coming back. Yeah, you don't like them, you're not going to be so keen to get them as a client. So what you tend to do is you'll find clients that you connect with and you have that relationship with. It's how it works. It's a bit similar to counselling, etc. Well, all kind of relationships, to be honest, when they come to professional. So it's about setting out at the outset with the new clients about the potential and pitfalls of in the fitness industry. You could lead down this path where it could become unhealthy and it could start turning into body dysmorphic disorder. Now, what is it? Sometimes known as bigorexia in the press. So where we've got anorexia, we've got bigorexia. It's the total opposite. So it's where an individual does not see themselves as big enough. And you in the fitness industry will start to spot and see potential gym users that perhaps you'll see. So you know what it's like, fitness industry, let's go for it. Let's say 3 sessions a week, 1 hour sessions. We'll put a timetable together for you, and that individual will start to see results. So they'll start to see results. And then you'll start to talk to them about diet. Now, you have a set of responsibilities here as a fitness instructor as well, because you need to make sure, because what could happen quite easily is you could push that person into thinking, right, for example, so you say, right, we need to go on a more protein diet. What's your objective? You do that evaluation at the beginning of it. So you do that evaluation as a gym instructor, you sat there and you're going, okay, what's your goal? What do you want to achieve? I want to be bigger. Right? Most men do. I want to be bigger. I want to be more defined. I want to build up some muscle tissue. Great. Okay, fantastic. Right. Anything in mind for that for? No, it's just for myself. Okay, fantastic. So you put them on that first regime, but you'll start to talk to them about diet as part of the process. That's what you do as a fitness instructor. So you'll give them the routines to be doing, getting them going, making sure that they're doing it safely, etc., blah, 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 all that element of it that you put in place. But then you'll be talking to them about diet and saying, look, if you want to bulk up, you're going to have to switch to a more protein-based diet. And that's what you're going to need to do to be able to bulk up. So what you could potentially introduce there into that person's fitness regime is a bit of an unhealthy relationship with food. So if you go, yeah, we need protein, and you need to put down 4,000 calories today, and you need to do that in 4 sittings, and there need to be regular breaks when you're doing that, what you can start to create there is a bit of an unhealthy relationship with food. Because what that person will do is maybe start worrying about if they start missing a food session. So if you say to them, right, 3 months, do that, they see improvement, they start to plateau a bit after that first 12 weeks, because what they're doing is they need that change of routine. They need to start working the muscle groups differently to start to build on to that next stage. So, with that, what you're doing then is they start to plateau. And then you started saying, right, okay, let's look at the protein-based diet. So this person might be looking at it and going, right, okay, then I need to do 1,000 calories at 8 o'clock in the morning. I need to do 1,000 calories at 12, 1,000 calories at 4 in the afternoon, and 1,000 calories at 8 o'clock at night. And that's how they're being setting it out. Now, what you should be doing with that is measuring the expectations, saying, look, this doesn't necessarily need to be after every day. I'm not au fait completely with the fitness industry, but it could be that they just do this on the days that they're going to the gym rather than doing it on a daily basis. Because what are you going to do if you're doing it on a daily basis? You're going to encourage that person to start going to the gym more.
So you're trying to break habits. You're trying not to create a habit that will bring stress if they don't keep up to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've got it in one.
It's really hard because there's so much there's so many cults in the fitness industry. So you could have anything from vegan to paleo telling you what to eat, and then there's different cults that tell you when to eat. So so what you're saying is our responsibility to kind of give people more freedom, educate them on what is right, but also give them the freedom to not lock themselves in a cage.
Absolutely. If you can guide them to what's right rather than tell them. That's a big difference as well. So don't tell, guide. And then also when you're looking at it and just go, okay, try this new food routine on the days you come to the gym. Let's not put it in place every day. Because what happens is if that person gets up at 8:30, oh my God, I'm a bit anxious. I didn't put my 1,000 calories down at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
They're having a meeting at work and that meeting runs over and then know that, oh my God, 12 o'clock, I should have been eating my 1,000 calories. So you're starting to put anxiousness into that individual. You're starting to raise their stress levels, or that person will do it themselves. And this is where mental health starts to deteriorate. And this is where it can start to be a problem, because that person's going, oh, well, I'm never going to build up. And we all know that feeling. We all know, well, I say that, I've not been to the gym for a while, but however, that first 6 weeks you go to the gym, you go, oh my God, they're trying to kill me. Can I ever carry on doing this? And then once you start getting into that routine, the endorphin release, how you feel good from it. And then again, endorphin release can be a bit addictive, especially with regards to that. So people are going, oh yeah, it makes me feel good. Oh, I'm not missing gym sessions. So all of a sudden what we've got is person's going 3 times a week. Well, I've plateaued a bit. I've changed my diet, but I'm not seeing much improvement. So the gym instructor suggests, oh, I know what, well, I know what, either we move up weight or we move up routine, or we add an extra day in. Yeah. And we put an extra day into that training routine. Then that person goes, well, I'm doing 4 days with my fitness instructor, but if I sling in another 2 myself, then I'm doing 6 days a week, and I'm going to see improvements quicker. See how it starts to catch up now? So then they're doing that. So they're going now 6 times a week. Well, what's happening now? How's that impacting their lives? Well, if they're calorie controlling them 6 days a week, they might as well do it for 7. So they're now doing it for 7 days a week. These are at set times every day. They're missing maybe social gatherings with friends because they need to eat this food. They're not going to restaurants because they can't calorie count. They won't go around to friends' houses because they won't calorie count to have meals. They can't go to a social engagement because they're going to the gym. So it starts to impact on a person's life, and it starts to a little bit take over their life. And then when it starts to develop into body dysmorphia, a person's looking at it and going, look, I'm really healthy here. I'm going to the gym. I'm eating well. But why am I not building up? I'm doing everything that they're telling me. And that can start to cause a bit of declining mental health, going towards symptoms of depression or anxiety, because that person's going, well, I'm not seeing the results as fast. Because we know what it's like. When you first start going to the gym, the acceleration in the change in the body is really quite quickly in that first 3 months.
Yeah, that's true.
And so you see that, and you see the acceleration and that change in a person's body, and they're looking in the mirror and they're going, oh yeah, this is looking really good. I'm feeling good about myself. And then the second 12 weeks, they've been changing the diet, they've been doing that, but the change is a little bit slower now. It's not as fast. They're not going to see the results as quickly. But then they're looking at it,
where you're going to plateau anyway.
Yeah, and get there. So then what happens then when they plateau? Well, I'm afraid to say, anabolic steroids are in most gyms now. You get them in most gyms. It used to be the dirty, shady backstreet gyms that you used to go to with the roller shutter doors, and you used to walk in and you used to have the bouncers from every bleeding club in the city there and be terrified, and they'd be chewing and spitting tobacco at you as you went past. Maybe not, but maybe making a lot of it up. But
I haven't been to any of that kind of gym yet.
Yeah, I remember once going to one to do a karate lesson, and that was the only karate lesson I ever went for. I walked in and I went, this is terrifying, and all these big meatheads are there. But what happens is they might be having a discussion in the changing room, and they're going, oh, how are you getting on? Yeah, I've seen you about the gym. Yeah. Oh, you with Elrado? He's your training instructor. Yeah, no, he's really great. But I'm not getting as big as I thought it would be now, and I'm starting to plateau a little bit. And he goes, do you know what you need, mate? He said, you just need a short course of anabolic steroids. It'll do the world of good. Not much of a threat. Stay on a short course, 3 weeks, you'll be good and see the results. That person then goes, really? Yeah, okay, then a bit hesitant. Oh, maybe they think about it. A couple of weeks later, meet up with that same person again in the changing rooms. They go, oh yeah, I've thought about it. Can you get hold of some of it for me? Yeah, of course I can. I've got some here, actually. Okay, exchange is made. That person then takes that anabolic steroid. Now, we know about anabolic steroids. We know what it can do with irritation, anger, how it can change the psyche in an individual, psychological changes, make individuals more aggressive. However, it does amazing results for muscle tissue. You can see it, and you can understand why. We've got top athletes that will use it, and then they get drugs tested, and then they get stripped of the medals or whatever it is. So you can see how people will turn to it, because it will give you such quick short-term results of what you're going to use. So now what have we got? We've got an individual who has is starting to go to the gym 6 times a week. He's seeing the trainer 3 times a week. He might have even gone up to 7 times a week now. He's got involved in his calorie control of his food. He's eating 4,000 calories every sitting. It's very protein based. He's missing other elements and nutrients out of his diet as a result of it, trying to bulk up. He's looking in the mirror. I'm not building as big as I did last time. Offered anabolic steroids, and we've now got drug misuse in there now. So we've got stress, we've got anxiety, we've got a poor relationship with food, and now we're introducing substance misuse. And with that, that's again another thing that's going to push this person's mental health down. So with that, this individual might go, oh my God, the results are incredible. It's like, it's even better than when I first started working out. Look at me every day. I'm bulking up, I'm bulking up, I'm bulking up. But then they'll stop the, so they go and work on 3-week cycles, usually anabolic steroids. We've got stacking, and I'll talk a little bit more about stacking when that starts to get introduced. So what we've got is we've got an individual now who's going, wow, they were great. They really worked, but they won't necessarily stack. And when I'm talking about stacking is where you'll do a 3-week cycle of anabolic steroid, 2.5 weeks in, you'll introduce another anabolic steroid, start taking that. So then you cycle and you're stacking your cycles. So you're constantly on anabolic steroids, but you're using different ones. All associated medical issues with taking it, and we know all about those. So we've got those implications from a physical perspective. We've got those mental health perspectives when it comes to the anabolic steroid. We've got the anxiety, we've got the stress, we've got the poor relationship with the food. He does that for 3 weeks, or she does that for 3 weeks. Let's not be sexist with it. And they see the results and they go, that's amazing. Then they carry on for another 3 weeks. And they're effectively plateauing because they've come off the anabolic steroid. So they look at it and they're going, I should be getting bigger, I should be getting bigger, I should be getting bigger. This is how body dysmorphia creeps in. So I'm going to go back on the steroids because I saw such fantastic results on the steroids. I'm going to go back on them. So when it comes to eating disorders, they're your main 4. What can you do? What can you do if somebody comes up and discloses to you that they might be having an unhealthy relationship with food, or you suspect, or you see signs and you see symptoms? Again, it's down to you. You as instructors have this responsibility that you need to educate at the outset. But if somebody comes to you, first and foremost, private and confidentiality. It doesn't need to go any further. Unless that person's at harm to themselves or at risk to somebody else of harming somebody else, you can keep this conversation private and confidential. It's about, if they do come to you, it's about going somewhere quiet, sitting down and having a conversation. And they've trusted you to have this conversation at this point, if they've opened up and disclosed it. Alrado knows he's a trained mental health first aider. He's been taught how to make these approaches when it comes to going to a person. But if this person comes to you and discloses this or wants to know more about nutrition, or for example, they're really disappointed with the results and should they be considering changing their diet, or they'd heard about anabolic steroids, or for example, you might have that conversation. People have the right to make their own choices. First and foremost, what you have to do first and foremost is put your judgment to one side. Because when we're having these conversations, what we do as human beings is we listen to understand most of the, listen to reply most of the time. That's what we do. So what you're doing in this conversation is you're listening to understand. It's very different. It's a different type of listening. It's called active listening, because you don't want to miss anything. And what you want to do then is, if somebody discloses this to you, you need to know more information. It's just like having a nosy conversation, I suppose, but done in a much more empathic way. But it's about having a conversation. Well, I need to know more, because if I need to know more, I can signpost this person to getting some resources. Yeah, you're not going to be expected to diagnose as an instructor. You're not going to be able to support that person if they have developed body dysmorphic disorder. Well, you are. You're going to be able to support that person perhaps in the gym, or as part of the support network. You can support that person, but you're not going to be the person that's going to be able to help this person deal with what their diagnosis is and get through their diagnosis and come out the other end of it, I suppose is what I'm trying to say there. So if somebody does disclose this and you think that the relationship's becoming unhealthy, there's the Mind charity, a great place for resources. Go and have a look on there. If you think it's an eating disorder, which you are going to get if we're talking about eating disorders, there's a great website called Beat, B-E-A-T. That's an eating disorder website. And they have so much resources, so you could signpost your clients to there. Why don't you go on the Beat website, have a nosy, see everything makes sense. if you do have any questions, come back to me and let me know. But eating disorders are really quite serious. Anorexia nervosa, bulimia, where individuals starve themselves, they need medical attention with regards to it. When you look at the other side of it, so binge eating, they go, yeah, you're just binge eating and just consuming huge amounts of calories. You're just going to get fat as a result of it if you don't do anything about it. It's not as simple as that. This person's coping with mental health distress with regards to their food. The trickiest conversation you're going to have, well, they're all tricky, but at least an individual might be more able to recognize within themselves that they've got a problem. Body dysmorphic disorder is a tricky conversation because those individuals are going, what are you talking about? I'm coming to the gym. I'm doing that really healthy. I'm looking after my diet. I'm not eating anything that's wrong. Yeah, okay, I might take an anabolic steroids, but look at the results and I'm not getting any aggression over it. I might have grown hair on the underside of my feet, but I'm not getting any aggression from it. Oh, you missed that joke then, Gerardo. I'm really disappointed you missed that joke. But
well,
what I'm saying,
maybe I've seen some. You never know.
Maybe just
I was like, yeah, that's normal.
Oh yeah, it might be just normal. Quite possible. But what I'm saying is that's going to be a tricky conversation to have. So I would do that in the way of. And I can't imagine that anybody would come to you. It was probably one of the rarer types that somebody would come to you. They might come with general conversations about food, about diet, but somebody opening up and thinking and saying to you that they believe they've got an issue with food is going to be a much rarer event of that happening.
I think so as well.
Yeah, you might get them asking questions, and really what they're trying to get at is that. And they're trying to open that up. And then that just means that as an individual, as an instructor, just be prepared to sit and listen. Because a lot of the time, an individual who is struggling, that's really powerful for that person, is that somebody's there who's prepared to listen to them and what they've got to say. So that's quite powerful. The body dysmorphic disorder, again, if they've got to that stage, if they're one of your clients, you need a crack round the ear roll, because you've allowed that client to get to that point. And I can hear you all shouting, going, yeah, that's all well and good, but how do I stop my client from getting to that point? That's where you set the ground rules at the beginning of your client relationship. And you set that out and you go, look, it's understandable, and we do know that people can slip down this route of body dysmorphic disorder, and us as instructors, we're on the lookout for it, and we want to support you if we see anything that might be of some concern to us. And if you set that out at the beginning of your relationship, or you can even, if you've got this client relationship, you've already got a client base that's built up, you can say, look, I've been reading more on it, and please do so. Have a look at it. Have a look at body dysmorphic disorder. The NHS website, they've got a great amount of information on there. So go to NHS Mood Zones, it's called. Go on there, or if you go on there for NHS mental health, actually that'd be easy for you. Go on to NHS mental health. Go on there and you will find body dysmorphic disorder on there. Educate yourself, have a bit of reading, more than I've said on the session today, because what that means is you can then make clients aware of those risks of potentially what could happen. And if you set that out, and even if you've got an existing client base, you can say, look, I've been reading up on this, and it's something that's becoming a bit of a worry within the fitness industry, and I just want to make sure you, as all my existing clients, are safe. And that I'm here as a person that you can come to talk to me if, for example, you feel like things are getting a little bit out of control, or you have been anabolics, have been offered anabolic steroids in the changing room, that you would come to me and say that, so that we can have an open conversation about the implications if you do go down that route of having it and what that can cause. Yeah. So this is about being proactive and cutting it off. Now, you may be in a situation where you're reactive. And what's happened is you've got a new client, or they're coming to the gym, or you might be in the gym and you're spotting that person across the gym and go, do you know what? That's every day this week he's been in, and he was in 3 nights as well. And that then, is that saying that? I said, okay, then. And you know, in the gym, you know when people are doing the steroids, because you can see that rapid acceleration in it and that happening. And muscle form, it always looks slightly different when steroids are involved in it anyway. I've tended to find.
Usually, so from what I've read, the traps and the shoulders, they have more testosterone receptors. Mm-hmm. So what you will find is if people start using steroids, usually the upper body will swell up. And you see mostly in women, because women don't have the ability to build a lot of traps. So when because they don't have a lot of testosterone, the shoulders and the traps don't get as much. How can I put it? Yeah, they don't get as much swollen as you would normally see someone who takes anabolic steroids.
Yeah.
So usually that's an indicator if somebody wants to use that as an indicator. But again, I mean, needs to be a caveat here. Don't just start telling people, oh, you've got great traps, so you're taking steroids. Yeah.
Yeah, you could land yourself in it. If you're looking around going, oh my God, look at all those raised traps. Right, anabolic steroid.
Yeah,
No,
exactly. Yeah, don't start doing that.
But it's about education. It's letting people know. And it's letting people know that you're a person who can go to for a conversation. And if you did spot somebody that was there, and that's just going over and having a chat and just being sociable, that's what you do in the gym. How are you going on? What training regime have you got in place, etc., etc. And then just see and build that relationship to the point where you could bring the topic of anabolic steroids in. And start having those conversations. It's about resources, and if you honestly thought that somebody was at risk to themselves, referring them back to their GP, not referring them, but encourage them to go and see a GP. But as I said, it's a tricky conversation. In all honesty, with regards to this and having these conversations, some further training will help. I'm not trying to sell any training here. For me, wherever you go and get that training, some further training will help, because what's coming along, and to be perfectly honest, as an instructor, about your unique selling points, that I'm almost sure it is, isn't it? Every time you qualify as an instructor now, you have to have a first aid certificate. Is that right? A physical first aid.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, I think you do,
so
don't you?
Anything from level 2 upwards, you need to have a first aid certificate. Yeah.
Okay. You should be having that as a mental health first aider as well. And the reason I say that is becoming law. It's going to come law in the workplace. And if you
it's already necessary in some places, so it's mandatory.
So any organisation that's got 5 employees or more, the health and safety executive are saying to those companies, get people trained up. The same criteria as physical first aid, the same number of people you have as physical first aiders, you have to have mental health first aiders in place as well. And that's because people can have crisis situations with regards to their mental health and how's that managed. But with that course and doing that course, or doing something similar to that, will give you the tools as an instructor as to how and go about, because I can't do it all justice on it. It's a 16-hour course about how to have these conversations. And with regards to that, I've been mindful myself about saying, go and have this conversation and doing this, because then I don't want you to put you in a situation as an instructor where I'd say, oh, well, Peter said, we're going to have this conversation, be open, connectivity, listen to understand, nice open body language, let that person know that you can be trusted, building up a relationship, and that person then divulges to you that they're thinking about suicide. And they're thinking about suicide, and the idea is coming together. They haven't got a date yet, but they know they're going to hang themselves, and they've bought the rope. Now, for that, if I said to you now, right, okay, then you just go off and have that conversation, that's not fair on you as an individual, to doing that. It's the same, because things can lead to crisis. If somebody, when we talk about body dysmorphic disorder, a person can get to the point where their mental health deteriorated so far that they cannot understand why they're not really healthy. They don't see themselves as healthy. They don't see themselves as big enough. They feel like they're failing in some way. They feel like they can't cope because they've got the anabolic steroid. All their social life has become very isolating because they've moved away from doing everything, because the gym took over their life, for example. They became very extreme with all their training regimes. And that could push them into suicidal ideation. So it can be a scary thing to open up that conversation with regards to it. But that said, if you are, it's for you guys as instructors, the simplest thing you can do is educate from the outset. And if you educate from the outset, sometimes we can get, whilst keeping fit and going to the gym and doing exercise is good, it can become bad. And it can lead down that route as well if you're not careful, and it can trigger that in some individuals. And then it's about having that open dialogue with your clients and having that and saying, look, if you ever get to that point where it is, or if I spot it, so as an instructor, if I start to see that perhaps it's becoming a little bit unhealthy, then we're going to have a conversation about it. And we'll have a chat about it. And that's again about being proactive with regards to it. That will make sense.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. And you know, some people will listen to this and they'll say, oh, how do we get from eating like just a few calories more to suicide. It's very important to understand that mental health issues build up quite quickly, and there's a lot of people, there's a lot of things that contribute to them, and that you can get from one extreme to the other. I'm not saying it is going to happen, but as you say, it's important to be open to those conversations. And I'll keep something else you said as well, that each person has the freedom to do his own choices. So it's important for us to listen, and not without binding to that emotionally as much as we want to do, because everybody wants to save the world, but there's this point where we kind of have to think, okay, this is as far as I can help. From now on, it's the other person's choices that guide it through.
Yeah, absolutely. Know your limits. First of all, know your limits as to, because a lot of people like to be fixers.
Yeah.
Let's rush in. Let's go and fix this situation. I'm a fixer. I know I'm a fixer. But when it comes to having conversations about mental health with my friends, with my families, my colleagues, or in a professional setting, or whatever that is, I always remember to, Peter, you're not fixing this. This person needs to take control and fix it for themselves. Because what happens if you fix it for them now, and then in a few months' time, you're not around to be able to fix it? And that person's left in maybe the same situation or even a worse situation. So it's about allowing that person, they're in control of it. They have to acknowledge themselves if they need to maybe reach out and get some help, because you can't force a person to do anything. A person is responsible for their own actions. And that's another thing about being an instructor. Yes, you've got a professional liability. Yes, you've got a social liability and a personal liability when it comes to your clients. But at the end of the day, your clients are responsible for themselves. You're not. Yeah. So you can only advise, you can only have conversations. If the upshot came to it where you went, you know what, I don't think you can even be a client anymore because I don't feel I can support you, and we're working against each other, and I think it's bad for your health rather than good for your health of what you're doing, you might need to break that relationship altogether. But then that might mean, is that person become more vulnerable? And if they have, who looks after them, who signposts them, etc. So all I would say with this and what we're talking about now, just educate. Educate. And as you say, it's the person that's responsible for their own actions, and you're just there as a support. And one thing to protect yourself, you're not there as a single support. Don't ever take it on a one-to-one basis, because very quickly it will have an impact on you as an instructor and on your personal health and on your mental health, because supporting somebody that's got mental health, poor mental health or mental health diagnosis can be really emotionally impactful on us as humans as well, as people as well. Who are listening to that conversation, because you might be told something that's really quite upsetting or quite makes you quite stressful and makes you quite anxious, and then how do I deal with that? So you need to look after yourself first and foremost, educate with conversations, and then look to thinking about putting some additional training in place. There we go.
Amazing. I was going for 15 minutes, but I think we've hit more than 40.
Oh my God. No, that's me for you.
No, it's brilliant stuff. Great. And just to close it up, would you mind just sharing what it is you're doing, your training, and where can people find you, just in case somebody wants to contact you?
Of course I can, yes. So I'm an accredited trainer for Mental Health First Aid England. So I'm licensed to deliver all of their full adult courses. So that's Mental Health First Aid. That's now delivered online. So you can do that. That's delivered over 4 live sessions on separate dates. And then there's some pre-learning activities to do on that. I also do the Mental Health Aware course. That's a shorter version. That's a 4-hour course, but split into 2 2-hour sessions. There's no pre-learning activities needed for that. And that course teaches you all about the common mental health diagnosis and how to have supporting conversations. It's not mental health first aid conversations, but just having a supportive conversation. And then I also deliver, if anybody, it depends who's watching it, I also deliver management training, so how to manage mental health in the workplace. So if you're a team leader, if you're a manager, and you've got members of staff there, not only are you looking after the mental health of the clients, you're also looking after the mental health of your staff. And you've got legal obligations to do that as well. And that's coming to the fore an awful lot more. And where can you find me? So my business is called PA Therapy, and if you go PA _therapy.co.
Put everything in the description.
Good, is that all going on there? So that's there, and you can find me on there. And if you've got any questions, if you've got anything, just drop me a line. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Peter Abbott. You'll find me on there. Drop me messages, put them through Elrado, send messages through for him. So there you go.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this.
You're welcome.
Great. Just give me 1 second.